Donuts. I got donuts. I got...
Donut? What's a donut?
Donuts. It looks wrong, but it is so right. Oh, yeah.
And we're live for another episode of Duff and Donuts. I am your host, Kia Not Keith, and I am here today, again, like always, with my lovely co-host, B. Today we're talking about Bart The General, Season 1, Episode 5. Also today, we are not having any soda because I'm not drinking soda for a bit. So no root beer, but this morning I did have a Sioux City sarsaparilla, so I guess that counts.
So you're not drinking it for a little bit, starting
today.
Now.
Yeah, starting
now.
now.
Okay, so what happened earlier, forget that.
I was hungry, yeah.
You've been really dropping the ball on the donuts, too.
You know what? We'll get donuts sometime.
I mean, all that pie and cake and everything.
Yeah, well, it was really good. Like, we've been having a lot of cake and pie. It's been my birthday and stuff. So, that's much more important than donuts. But we'll get back to the donuts, on the weekends when we record this. But let's get back on track to Episode 5, Bart the General. So, this is the first one without why did I say chalkboard? First one without in the canonical series, because obviously, the first episode, Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire, is technically a special.
Right.
This is the first canon Season 1 that doesn't have an intro.
I was surprised. I was like, hey, wait, did we miss the intro? Where'd it go?
Yeah.
No couch gag, no chalkboard gag this time.
So,
They jump right into the opening scene where Bart is looking in the oven at some cupcakes baking.
Yep.
He wants one, of course, but Marge tells him that Lisa is baking them for Miss Hoover's birthday.
Yep.
Bart and Homer automatically assume that means Lisa is sucking up to her teacher. Why else would you bake your teacher cupcakes? Well, Lisa says, I like my teacher, and Homer's just not buying it. So Bart keeps, begging Lisa for her cupcakes, and they go out to the school bus, and you see Otto again. I think it's kind of establishing that relationship between Bart and Otto that kind of got lost a little bit in the later seasons. I would guess that they're trying to make it like, Otto is the adult that Bart kind of looks up to, kind of wants to be like him. Mm-hmm. That's what I get from it, at least.
Yeah.
Lisa makes it worse by giving Otto a cupcake and not sharing with Bart still.
But then, Bart's, begging and, come on, Lisa, I saved him. And then, Lisa gets up and a cupcake falls to the ground and Bart gets the dirty, icky cupcake.
And he doesn't know it because, of course, she says, close your eyes and you'll get a big surprise. So they go to take the cupcakes in, where they are met with one of Nelson's, they refer to them on Wikipedia as weasels.
Yep, yellow weasel and black weasel.
Which is kind of...
Yeah,
questionable.
Well,
and
weird,
this
dude.
one was the yellow weasel
Yes.
they were confronted by. He starts taking a bite out of every cupcake, and Bart, of course, tries to stop him.
And Lisa's like, no, Bart, don't do it. This is Nelson's friend. And Bart's like, dude, come on, stop doing this. If I can't have a cupcake, you can't have a cupcake.
Nelson comes up, Bart just kind of blindly starts swinging in the air, and he, quote-unquote, makes Nelson bleed his own blood.
Yeah.
Which obviously makes him very angry because, as they had just established, he's the bully of the schoolyard.
Yeah.
This is the first time, I believe, that they have mentioned that.
Yep, and this is the first time Nelson's technically appeared.
Right, and definitely these two, I believe we see these weasels in one or two more episodes, and then not again until,
They're background characters from then on.
Even in the background, I want to say, we've only seen them a couple times.
Doesn't Nelson reference that they're from it? You were telling me they're from
Yeah. They reference it in one of these newer seasons. I forget which season. I can let you guys know later, but he mentions how, oh, hey, my old friends, and they went to a different school, I guess, is the story that they're using.
He told Nelson that he, along with Yellow Weasel, moved to Shelbyville and goes to Shelbyville Elementary.
Nice. The internet is a great thing. All right, so obviously Nelson's mad. So he's establishing, hey, I'm going to get you after school. Bart, while he's in class, has one of those daydreams, those little cutaways that they've been doing in these first couple episodes here, about fighting Nelson.
Yep.
And everything he's doing is obviously not working.
Right.
He's throwing knives at him,
Yep.
like nothing works. He ends up getting eaten by Nelson, and woken up by Milhouse like, hey, it's time for lunch. Then they go into the lunchroom, and Lisa's like, hey, it's Bart the bully killer. She's really proud of her big brother for sticking up for her.
Yep.
Everyone's cheering. After lunch, he has another daydream about his own funeral. And I believe you were in the kitchen making a smoothie during this part, so did you even catch any of that?
He's dead. He's dead. And then Skinner's like, I guess all that homework was for waste. Homer's like happy that he gets to miss work, and then Marge like tries to be like, Homer, and he's like, oh, but I'm so sad you're gone.
Right. And then, Lisa, she's feeling guilty about the whole cupcake thing, and she says she's going to just lovingly put it on his forehead. And then, of course, it has to end with Nelson, oh, hey, they have food here. He eats the cupcake. He punches Bart, one for the road, man.
Yep. And so then they move on, and then it goes into Bart. The bell rings, and Bart's like, oh, man, I'm going to actually have to face this guy.
I loved this next scene. I don't know why, but I just actually got so much pleasure of watching Bart's face while Nelson punched him. Some of those facial expressions I thought were just hilarious.
Yeah.
We were also noticing that there was actually a lot of front face shots in this episode, like Bart and Lisa talking earlier, Homer. I kind of enjoy those because usually we kind of just see them like side, the side shots or the not extremely like face to face.
Right. It's just them, just one person talking, and then switches to another frame of the other person talking.
Right. I like the whole front camera view. So anyway, not only does he get punched in the face, but they put him in the trash can and they roll him down the hill, which apparently leads right to their house. And not only that, but before they do that, they tell him, hey, we're going to do this again tomorrow. So it's not just a one-time thing. They're ticked off, and, he's going to be bullied every day, apparently. So Bart goes home. And
then, like, he tries to get, tries to talk with Homer about everything, and Homer's like, throw mud, be dirty. And then Marge is all worried, and this is where I know me and my wife's idea of parenting
would totally differ
each other, because as I was watching, I was like, I would definitely say this, and thinking about what she would say, be like, no, don't do that. Call an adult. Like, call an adult? This is a man's job.
Oh, good grief.
But speaking of which, guess what word wanted to be censored, but they didn't? Family Jewels.
Family Jewels.
Yes.
They would have had to come up with something else to call it.
Homer said to kick him in the Family Jewels. The episode had problems with censors who do not want the characters to say Family Jewels on primetime television. The producers ignored the notes, and Family Jewels remained in the episode. This act of attempted censorship was reflected in the part where Grandpa Simpson writes a letter complaining how sexualized television has become a list of words he never wants to hear on television, and one which is Family Jewels.
I think another one was bra, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But we'll get to that here in a second. So obviously they have two different parenting styles. Marge is like, oh, hey, this kid, he's probably a little chubby. He's probably not doing very well in school, so he's probably being a bully because he's not happy with himself. Just try to reason with him. And Homer's like, nah, throw mud at him, kick him in the Family Jewels, fight dirty. He actually drags out this punching bag and draws a face on it, and he goes as far as jumping on it and biting it. Like, he's getting aggressive. I love it.
Yeah, no, and then, like, he tries all this and just gets his butt kicked.
I love how while he was confronting Nelson, there was that little bubble with Homer in it. Like, go for the Family Jewels, son. Yeah. And then he, like, watches him get his butt kicked.
Wincing.
And he's like, ooh. Yeah, and his words of advice earlier were something along the lines of, always pick on the kid who's different from you. Don't say anything unless you're 100% sure everyone else feels the same way. So again, that we're seeing like Homer being kind of like, you know, he means well, but he's not very smart.
No, he's not the brightest crayon in the box, and like that. I think though. I don't think very smart is the proper term. I feel like, I don't think, like, parents know. Like, I feel like this is always a generational thing, because every generation is going to be different about, like, what problems they're going to face. I know that sounds weird, but, like, I feel like that's, like, every generation, though their parents don't know what to do.
Well, our parents couldn't really give us advice on, like, any kind of cyberbullying, because when they grew up, there was no internet, obviously, or nothing like the internet. So their way to deal with stuff is totally different than, what we have to tell our kids,
Right.
But yeah, so Bart gets beat up really bad to the point where he actually coughs up his hat, which
Yep.
I thought was funny, because when I first saw the episode, I thought, why is he wearing a hat randomly? And then, oh, hey, it's because he's gonna
Yep.
he's gonna cough it up. So as mentioned earlier, Lisa tells him to go to talk to Grandpa for some advice, and Grandpa's in the old folks' home, which looks totally different in this episode, by the way, but it's the first time we're seeing it. And he's writing that angry letter about how old people are depicted on TV and what censorship and what he doesn't want to hear on TV anymore.
I think that's super funny, though, to me. Like, I just...
We also see Jasper for the first time in this episode,
Yep.
but this time he's a bully.
Yep.
He's
I
trying
want to see
to...
that paper, Simpson. No!
Yeah, he wanted
me
it for
see
the
that
crossword puzzle.
He's so adorable. Like, that's the thing, though. He's so adorable that, like, I don't see it, I guess. You know what I mean?
I mean, they're kind of like friends in later episodes. You know, you always see him with Jasper. They're always, like, watching TV or, whatever. But I guess the point was, if you don't stick up for yourself now, you're going to be bullied forever. So Grandpa notices, like, hey, I'm not good at this. So we get introduced to another character.
Grandpa introduces everyone to Herman.
Well, just Bart.
Just Bart. He's a weirdo, man.
He's crazy.
I like my favorite line from him. Bart goes, "Did you lose your arm in the war?" "Did I lose my arm in the war?" "Next time your teacher tells you to put your hand... Not
to stick your
arm
hand
out of the bus window. You do it." Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny, because you'd think it would be something war related or a funny, like an oh my gosh story.
Crazy
but
human being.
Yeah, he's talking about sticking his arm out the bus window.
But I think that's another thing that The Simpsons captures, though, is just like there are just outlandish people out there.
Right, definitely. And if he is a war veteran, which I believe he is because he has the dog tags, right? Probably Vietnam, I'm guessing.
At that time,
like he could definitely have like PTSD,
right.
Stuff like that. That's.
I don't know. Some of those episodes, like.
Right, he is very questionable,
yeah.
For sure. But anyway, he tells Bart, you're gonna need some troops. So Bart passes a note around to everyone at school, like, hey, if you're scared of Nelson, meet me at my treehouse. And he gives the inspiring speech. I do promise you honor and glory. I do promise you victory. Victory and fun times, wasn't it? Victory and fun times.
And then they go into this military montage.
And it's so cute, like...
I mean, it's
super
cute, but
old
it's also,
school.
like, very, like, oh my gosh.
It's funny, I feel like. It's just that old school, like, what kids probably used to play, kind of, like... They're in the treehouse, and then they, like, hop the stones... Well, not the stones, but the kid's helmet in the river. They're marching
that was the
with
one
their
thing,
little
like,
rhymes.
I literally thought that was going to be Millhouse, but it wasn't.
It would have made a lot of sense for it to be Millhouse. But there was a lot of random kids.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, like, not reoccurring characters in that little army.
That's the one thing, though. The episode makes various references to World War I's iconic image. For example, a boy kisses Lisa, and it looks like the image of the sailor kissing a nurse on VJ Day.
I love that Lisa just smacked him, though, and she's like, knock it off.
Also, there's a shot with a helmet lying in a puddle of water that seems to be credits of the film The Longest Day. But the one thing that was the most important of these scenes is this was an actual thing that had happened, that Bart confronts a soldier who says he's lost his nerves, to which Bart responds by slapping him and saying, I won't have cowards in my army. Then Grandpa slaps Bart and says, you can push them out of a plane, you can march them off a cliff, you can send them off to die in some godforsaken rock, but for some reason you can't slap them. Now apologize to that boy right now. This is a reference to General Patton slapping a soldier who was in the infirmary dealing with PTSD during World War II. Patton was subsequently required to publicly apologize and was removed from the front line as a result.
Oh my gosh, that is interesting. See, I had no clue that was a real thing.
Yep.
And I literally thought that the writers just, like, that's funny to me. Like, the quote is funny, you know what I mean? Like, some godforsaken rock, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yep.
I just thought it was for fun.
Yeah.
So
times, man.
So obviously here they're using water balloons on Nelson and his weasels. And it's another funny reference is, you know, they say happy birthday on them. Mm-hmm. And Herman's like, I'd rather they say death from above. I love that too.
Well, he's such a crazy man.
He's
so
funny.
Just that, like...
Well, it's just ironic that they say happy birthday and, you know, like, it's made for war purposes.
Yeah.
But at the end, the weasels abandon Nelson. They're just like, hey, we were just following orders, you know. And Nelson's tied up. And he's like, hey, you know, the second that I'm untied, I'm going to kill you, you know. So they end up having to do a peace treaty. And then, you know, it ends very wholesomely with Marge like, hey, you know, if you guys are done playing war, here's some cupcakes, you know.
Yeah. And they all eat cupcakes.
But then they had the little after scene as well.
Yup, where Bart is, like, talking about, like, you know, there's a lot of violence going on, but the only violence that is acceptable is the Revolutionary War, World War II, and the Star Wars trilogy, which I kind of giggled at.
Right, because he's like, no one really wins in war, and, you know, like, I guess kind of like, war is not all fun and games like we showed here, you know, like, take it more serious, but then he goes to make another joke, you know, like the Star Wars trilogy, so it's just kind of, it's just kind of funny, like.
So, speaking of this episode had a lot of censors. Ooh,
more than just the one?
Yes.
I'm anxious to hear.
You should be. The scene in which Bart was being chased by Nelson in his dream, as well as Homer's fight with the punching bag, were taken out of syndication due to violence.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
This is a very interesting one. This one had a lot of
but Herman
censors being pushed into.
Herman takes a bayonet.
Yeah.
To the
Man,
punching bag during the training.
I'm not captain of the syndication.
I wonder if it was Homer biting the punching bag, or if it was him punching in the family jewels, because, you know, there was a problem apparently with the family jewels thing. So I wonder. That's interesting.
First time in the series where Nelson beats up Bart. Throughout the series, he usually bullies other students. There's no obviously this so. This episode, along with Seinfeld episode The Tape, 1991, were used in the Dartmouth College experiment to study brain activity in relation to humorous moments on television shows. Oh. The results were published in 2004 issue of the academic journal Neural Image. The research noted during moments of humor detection, significant brain activities was noted in the left posterior middle temporal gyrus.
What the heck?
Apparently, they're funny. The humor really hits your creative side.
Gotcha. I thought the right side of your brain was the creative side, and the left side was the. But I've also heard all of that is a myth. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is all a myth.
I'm sure you could find Google. You know, you can Google it and find articles saying both. You know.
All right, let's go to our final thoughts. And mine is, I personally really enjoyed this episode. I think this episode, again, after reading that, edgy for its time, totally for it. I'm for the edge. Not because, like, I like things edgy, but I like, you know, thinking about back then in the 90s, like, we had, no offense, it's not against, like, Republicans, but we had George H. Bush in there, so he was very, like, uptight, and I just remember that line he said. Let's have the families more like the Waltons and less like the Simpsons. And this seems like that shaped that line a little bit. Mm-hmm. You know, saying quote unquote bad words, you know, violence. Like this was an episode that, like, to me, it was very hard on the head. It was that facts of life. It was the anti-facts of life episode, you know, where, like, I'm getting bullied. Will you tell an adult, Billy? Like, this was, like, fight back and stuff like that. So this is the it's the lesson within the lesson of The Simpsons where, like, I think they take things more realistic than than other sitcoms did at the time about these kind of things.
Right.
So, overall, I'm going to give this I'm gonna give this an 8. I really like this episode a lot. I feel like I don't think I've reached my pinnacle perfect Simpsons episode, but we're still on season 1, episode 5. Hopefully episode 6 will give it to me, but I really did enjoy this episode a lot, and I think that it was fun.
It was a fun episode.
A lot of cool references, personally, and I kind of understood most of them.
Which is really fun too. Yeah, I'm up there with you. I'd probably give it an 8. Definitely, it was. I don't know exactly how to put it. I like that it is so old school. With their thinking, it reminds me kind of like of a Recess episode.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of like there's playground rules, you know what I mean? Like you got to handle this yourself. All the kids come together. They don't actually hurt Nelson. You know what I mean? Like they're not actually fighting. Bart tried to fight physically, but that didn't work. But they just pummel him with water balloons, which I found. I mean, it was effective.
Yeah.
At least it got him to sign the peace treaty, although we do see that was null and void after a while. Well, actually, you mentioned that he does bully more people rather than Bart after this.
I mean, throughout this. So
he does bully Bart later, so he didn't totally honor the peace treaty.
Yeah, I mean, and he also dates his sister, so...
Right.
Spoilers, sorry, guys. Just saying.
But I guess, I don't know. I just really, I enjoyed it. It was a fun ride. It was funny. It had all the humor in there, the Family Jewels thing, Grandpa's angry letter. They even had a part where Grandpa was throwing water balloons at Homer because Homer's like, hey, kids, keep it down, kind of like the old man with the stick, get off my lawn kind of thing, Yeah, for all the humor, I'd say it's a solid 8.
That's good. Now, guys, do not forget to leave a comment down below, share this, listen, give us a jangle, listen to the other 4 episodes. Yes, because this is fine. 4 episodes. And next time we will be back with Season 1, Episode 6, Moaning Lisa. Ooh, saucy. Thank you guys, and have a wonderful day. Or night, or evening, whatever you guys do. Bye.
Bye.